Good morning, everyone. Ooh, welcome to Coffee and Headlines. It is Thursday, July 9, and I'm just crash landed on in front of the computer today because I slept in, and there are so many news to sift through to keep things concise and making sense. And I was making coffee in the kitchen, and all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, it's time to get going. So here we are, Coffee and Headlines every morning, live, 10:30, Facebook, a place where we get together and talk about the news and headlines and stories and things that are happening to us or elsewhere in the world in the way they relate to our lives here in Puerto Vallarta as English speakers. It's always a pleasure to do this. And I spent so much time yesterday laughing. I'm going to clear my throat a gazillion times today. We have a lot of news to cover. There's so much to talk about. So we're going to talk about some of the latest news. I'm going to talk to you about how I fucked up yesterday and I addressed something from my gut and I didn't think about it and I felt bad about it through the afternoon. And then I handled it and I feel a much better person today. And what else? We have a couple of interesting, curious news and a new show on Netflix about street food. I think that is going to be absolutely wonderful. So we are going to, let me take a quick look at what's going on here. Everybody's getting coffee. I just got my coffee just now. I'm really, really happy. Bam, ba-dum, bam, bam, ba-dum, bam, bam. Oh, lots of people that we know and love. Please don't feel disregarded if I don't say good morning to each and every one of you. But you are all wonderful and precious to me. Please know that. Yes, I got my coffee before racing to the computer. Here it is. It is completely full, so we are ready to go. And as long as we're ready to go, let me get started with the news because we have important news to talk about, and it's really important to follow up some of the things that we talked about yesterday. Check it out. As we know, yesterday the governor dropped the bomb, and it was a real stinker because it was an honest, poignant, direct, no bullshit bomb. And needless to say, it was quickly replicated in papers in the region. This is Vallarta Opina en línea, which very clearly says urgent. The city will be closed. Everything will be closed again for 14 days, including beaches, if cases continue to spread. And the news was very clearly spelled out. Of course, they did not include the entire speech, but it was very concisely written. Vallarta Independiente did the same thing. Their comment here has to do with the fact that this so-called emergency button would end up collapsing Puerto Vallarta's economy. Unfortunately, this is very true. If it comes to that, this would be a very, very severe blow to our economy, which as it is going through a very challenging time moving forward. Contralinea, another one of the sources that I refer to on a regular basis, same thing. They spelled out all the news and included some quotes about everything that we talked about. And the reason I am sharing this with you is because I want to make sure that you get a sense that even when you may not be able to understand our language, understand Spanish, please know that it's nice to see that our other sources of information are taking these facts seriously and are broadcasting the news in Spanish as best as possible. On his part, Arturo Dávalos, our mayor, went on to his Facebook page and he echoed the recommendations of the governor, indicating that we should stay at home. We should always wear a face mask. We should carry gel with us at all times. And we should keep a distance between other people, about 1.5 meters, and to avoid touching our faces. I'd like to make a small comment about the gel business. And I see a lot of people commenting how it is a fact that some businesses don't offer you gel when you arrive. Well, I'm going to check the protocols, but I don't think it's a business responsibility to offer you gel. I think businesses do it as a courtesy. And even if you wanted to rely on the gel jar that a business offers you, please remember we talked about this a few weeks ago. There are cases in Jalisco in which a counterfeit cleaning gel has been sold that has methanol, and that is extremely poisonous to the skin. Cleaning gel is not expensive. I always carry my own, and whenever I go out and about and I am offered somebody else's gel, I'd rather use my own. In fact, there are all different kinds of gels out there. Some are really sticky and are just not comfortable to use. So just keep that in mind. If you go out and about and you're not offered gel, well, consider getting a small container. We'll carry a purse, a MERS, big pocket. They sell them in small size at Walmart. They're very, very convenient. I also want to share with you, of course, that our mayor met with members of the industry sector here, the business sector in Puerto Vallarta. And again, he talked to the people in his meeting, saying that we shouldn't drop our guard. This is for our best interest. And talking about mechanisms of collaboration between his staff and the private sector so that all these new guidelines can be followed accordingly. Now, this is relating, good, clarification. Clarification. Thank you, Gayoff, for clarifying that. Gel is part of the mandatory protocol, but you agree, and I agree with you, everybody should have some. I'm so glad that you're here, Gayoff, because your knowledge and expertise will come very handy to this program later on. So please don't go anywhere. Go get some coffee and get comfortable, because I want to pick your brain, and we want to pick your brain as soon as we get to this situation. Because, okay, I'm losing my train of thought. Don't let me do that. Let me go back to the news. Okay. So, yes, I'm sorry. So these things that we're talking about have to do with the announcement that the governor made 2 days ago, because his announcement was on Tuesday night. Well, yesterday, he made another announcement. This one, we're not translating the whole thing, but I want you to know that yesterday, the governor met with mayors of tourist municipalities that are near Guadalajara locally, and also with more distant mayors via internet. I don't know if our mayor was present at this particular meeting yesterday, and the mayor of Tapalpa was there, Tequila, etc., and they were there so that he could explain to everybody clear and simple things like, number one, face masks are mandatory, and people will get what is known in legalese as administrative sanctions. And I think that sounds to me like fines if you're not wearing them out and about. He also said very specifically that bars pretending to be restaurants cannot operate. Now, I want to qualify that because I know that there are bar owners that are working as restaurants in our audience. And let me make sure that you don't get all nervous. I think, and this is just speculation again, because he just spoke and he was not very specific. There's a big difference with, for example, Chachalaca. Chachalaca is a bar. they have, as I understand it, a restaurant license, and they have a liquor license. You when you own these kinds of businesses, you have to have the specific licenses. Chachalaca, like some other bars, have gone through the process of opening, and then when they open, and then for whatever reason, when they opened, they had announced that they were going to have a restaurant component from the get-go, and they never activated. We don't know why, and that's okay. But recently, Chachalaca Bar decided, well, we're going to activate our kitchen. So they went through the whole rigmarole to get their permits, to get their sticker, to get everything that's going on, and that is necessary for them to operate. And now they are operating as a bar with a restaurant or a restaurant bar. Now, that is not the same thing, for example, as let's say you have a bar and you asked your next door neighbor, can you make some popcorn and put it in little bags and sell it? So I suspect that when our governor says things like bars pretending to be restaurants are going to be shut down, he cannot possibly refer to bars with a restaurant license that have gone through all the process and all the protocols. And it's nice to see a comment here. Let's see. As per a phone call to Reglamentos last night, operations can continue as normal, but must follow all rules. I suspect that will change. Well, I hope that's not the case, Gayoff. And I know that you're Jeff, but for me, you're always going to be Gayoff. I don't care what people say. The point that I'm trying to make is when the governor met with the mayors of these little towns, these are little towns, think San Sebastián del Oeste, okay? So if you're a little bar in the middle of nowhere in San Sebastián del Oeste, and again, your next door neighbor prepares a huge bowl of pozole and you start serving it at your bar, and you think that gives you an excuse to operate your bar, that's where I think the governor is talking about. Now, if you are a bar that made some kind of arrangement that is not completely transparent and you've been operating, well, they could close you down. So as long as folks are doing things by the book, I suspect that things are going to be okay. And I certainly hope that, because I appreciate that this has been very difficult for most of us, particularly those sectors that have not been able to open. And the governor said that very explicitly. He realizes that it's been very, very challenging for these sectors. Anyhow, Alfaro mentioned this. And of course, let me make sure that I'm not skipping something. We saw that one. Yes. And we saw this one. This has to do with, of course, that address that Alfaro made yesterday. That was also replicated in local sources. Contralinea says the lid will be tightened so that tourist destinations will abide by the protocols against COVID-19. And once again, they mention some of the things that I have just mentioned to you regarding the bars. Vallarta Opina mentions it again, mentions it as well. Face masks are obligatory or there will be a sanction and bars will close, says the governor. Again, bars have not been able to open. So if there are bars that are just operating as bars, then you shouldn't be open. Sorry, that's what that's what the guideline has been from the get-go. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of this moving forward. I certainly hope that the government doesn't have a change of heart for those of you who have gone through all the effort to open the food aspect of your business. My heart goes to you. And I will tell you in a little bit about what a wonderful time I had at Chachalaca last night. it was completely spontaneous and unplanned, but I will definitely give a shout out for that when we get to the leisurely stuff. Um, of course, another headline that I caught my attention locally here, Vallarta Independiente, mentions how a lot of the problem with transportation has to do with the fact that businesses fail to establish staggered um, times to check in and check out for their employees. So there are always times in which the public transportation is likely to get saturated. This article mentions how frequently people are wearing face masks when they get on the bus, but once they're sitting down, they take them off. And that has created all kinds of fights and disagreement among passengers on the buses. Again, it's very tempting to go out and try to be vigilantes, but it is a very complicated thing. To that effect, we had a local unfortunate case of this particular lady who had a bus driver fired uh, in an unjust way because the bus driver told her, "Lady, put on your face mask," and she placed a report to the bus company, and the bus company fired the bus driver. But what this lady didn't know is that somebody had taped the whole exchange with their phone, and in the video it was very clear that it was not the bus driver that was at fault, it was her that was at fault. And unfortunately the bus company wouldn't hear of it, and that just makes me very sad, because one thing is when you get fired because you did something you were not supposed to do, um, is one thing, and another thing completely is when some hater, or as we call them here in Mexico, some lady or lord, decides to be vindictive and act on these things. Let me say, I'm sorry, Gary Abrams. You don't tell me how to speak. No, I'm just kidding. See, I'm sorry. It's a long story, Gary. It has to do with the sound of music. We're not going to go there. Um, but but please allow me to call Jeff Gay off. It's a little love thing. We're going to continue doing that, I hope. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Why is Sky Bar open? Well, they serve food, and Paul answered that question. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Sky Bar can operate, and I've been to Sky Bar, and it's a beautiful place. And if they have their license in check, I don't see why they couldn't, as long as they're following the guidelines that have to do with the number of people that can be there. Um, I actually don't know if the restaurant is downstairs or upstairs, Dave, but I do know that before the pandemic, I've sat down at Sky Bar. I've had a meal. I've had a meal offered, and again, that is a very different situation that somebody that is just improvising. We have our own Karen Camiones. Yes, yes, we do. I try to shy away from the Karen and Ken business because I don't want to condemn friends or people that happen to be called Karen or Ken. That's why in Mexico we call them lords and ladies. Um, Crystal mentions that they stopped last night at my bar and grill. They looked at your license. Haven't done that since we reopened and had our inspection. Yes, we have a restaurant license. Case in point, I sure hope, Crystal, that when they did that, everything remained in order. I happen to know, and this is not published anywhere because I learned this confidentially, that reglamentos is expected to be slightly tougher on bars that are trying to operate as restaurants, because they want to make sure, reglamentos wants to make sure that they are truly following things by the book. And I understand that there's a very specific mandate to do that. Um, yes, no offense to the many lovely Karens of the world. I'm going to introduce you to Costco Ken in a minute, or Lord Costco, as we would say in Mexico. It is sad about the bus driver, absolutely, because oh, yeah, it's just sad. It's unfair when we get unkind. Um, as per our phone call with reglamentos regarding off-site kitchens, they said to maintain operations as usual with strict food services and minimum 3 drink limit. Um, that was okay yesterday. May that change today? Absolutely, absolutely. Because remote kitchens, I don't know if you're talking. Well, Geoff, tell me if this is about your specific place. I mean, I know that Apache's is not open right now, but let me imagine or let me assume that you have a kitchen restaurant license as well, because if you don't, I would imagine that that would put you in an uncomfortable position if you were to reopen. Again, I'm not an expert on licensing and permits, so I'm just trying to provide information as best as I possibly can. Uh, yes, Sky Bar is a beautiful spot, and it is unfortunate that Sky Bar is part of a business compound that is now surrounded with so much questioning regarding the ways they operate or not. I certainly hope that the nice folks at Mantamar and the nice folks at some of the other venues that have been mentioned a lot lately have been paying attention and have been putting things in perspective. Um, which Sky Bar are we talking about? Again, I think we're talking about the one that is on Mantamar. Well, Mantamar is the beach club for Almar, so I believe we're talking about Sky Bar. I'm responding things that you have already responded. So you guys are so freaking efficient. I love it. Speaking of efficiency, let us change the tune a little bit. Let us take a quick look at the weather, just in case you're wondering. Do you like when I talk about the weather? It takes 20 seconds, but if this is of no use, we don't have to invoke carrot weather every day. I kind of like knowing what the weather is this time of year, because this time of year it is interesting. There's some days are going to be warm, some days are going to be sunny, other days are going to be humid, and then it's going to pour, and we love that. Currently, it's 83 degrees Fahrenheit. Celsius, it's 28. It feels like 89. Humidity, 73%. Um, and according to Snarky Carrot Weather, the elderly have a 74.9% greater chance of dying of heat stroke. What do you know? That's not me. That's just a snarky weatherman that we live with. It looks like it's going to be cloudy. I don't see a lot of rain in our future. And I see that you want me to keep the weather. You guys are so kind. I like the weather. Why is it not in Celsius? I read it in Celsius every day. And I certainly hope that does not go unacknowledged. If you want me, I can change the big number to Celsius, to centigrade. Why is it not? It is in Celsius. It's just a small print um, when we read the weather. Bam, 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 bam. Let me also move on to other things I want to talk about. Well, actually, I would love to tell you a little bit about my birthday and some of the thoughts that went on through my mind. First of all, it was so very, number one, it was so very humbling to receive so many birthday wishes from kind folks that I've met here. You guys, we haven't had the pleasure of meeting in person, many of us. And it is just so nice to hear from you. I'm still responding to birthday wishes. I want to do that one by one. Number two, I want to also acknowledge the fact that so many of you shared the post on the website yesterday that had the full speech of the governor that I translated. Full disclosure, on my website, paco-ojeda.com, I usually get about 100, 120 visitors per day, people that check out the latest article or the show notes from Coffee and Headlines. And yesterday, or rather this morning, I noticed that about 1,950 people had seen the article. And this morning, there's already about 450 that have seen yesterday's article. And I think this is a great community success because what we're trying to do here is disseminate information that is important. Number one. Number two, yesterday, because I got a handful, I don't want to brag, but I got a handful of invitations to go out and party for my birthday. And I thought long and hard about this. And I said to myself, how can you sit in front of all these kind people that tune in every day and talk about leading by example and then go party your ass off because it's your birthday? So I very politely declined a bunch of invitations to go out and party for my birthday. And let me tell you, this whole business of leading by example is very complicated. And I say that in the best possible way. Yesterday, for example, our dear friend Louise Anderson, who is a regular here on the show, she posted a comment that had to do with, well, how nice it is that we live in a place where home delivery is so wonderful. And I responded back with my gut saying, well, wait a second, why should home delivery people risk their lives for you or for me or for anybody else? And there's a part of me that sticks to that, but then there's also this part of me that thought, Paco, you don't know much about Louise. You don't know if she has a heart condition. You don't know if she's of a certain age. I don't know if you're unable to leave your house. I don't know if maybe you have not been able to overcome your fear to go out. And I found myself feeling that I dropped the ball, and I felt like I was unkind and unsympathetic all afternoon. And I've exchanged a couple of messages with Louise, and I want you to know that she apologized to me, and then I apologized to her, and I certainly hope everything's okay. But I'm mentioning this because it is so easy to all of a sudden respond with your gut to a situation and forget about the details and forget about being kind. So it was the most valuable lesson I could have had yesterday. Yesterday, I also thought about how complicated the new guidelines are. Some of you have mentioned that you want to start a restaurant list, a list of trustworthy restaurants. And yesterday I said, I'm not going to any new places, and I want to qualify that as well. If I read here in a community that I trust and I love, that a certain restaurant that I don't know is a restaurant where they felt safe, I would certainly visit that restaurant. I'm just not going to do any cold visits and so forth and so on. But here's the important thing about restaurants. Yesterday I kept thinking, and please indulge me, I won't take much of your time, being I know this is about me, but I hope it's also about us. Yesterday, I kept thinking long and hard about at least two restaurants that I know and love that follow all the guidelines but do not take my temperature when I arrive. And that got me thinking. At first, I thought, well, I'm going to go visit these restaurants and I'm going to tell them, you're not taking my temperature. What's up with that? I don't want to shame anybody. We shouldn't shame anybody without knowing all the facts. And then late last night, I remembered, wait a second. Restaurants were able to open before the measures that include taking temperature and stuff like that were implemented. So it is quite possible that it is okay for a restaurant to not take your temperature. Whereas I was thinking, I am going to stop going to these places that I love because they don't take my temperature. So what I'm getting out of this, and what I hope you will get out of this, is I am going to go back and research all those protocols. And I want to make sure that I'm steering this ship with well-grounded information. And Geoff, this is precisely what I wanted to talk to you about. And I see that you were going to go to El Rio tomorrow for your When is your birthday? Oh my God, no wonder I like you so much. No, what I'm getting at is, if you are a restaurant, Michael Beaufort, I'm sure you would know. If you're listening, please chime in or send me a line, or maybe I'll talk to you later. If you are a restaurant, are you expected to take the temperature according to the new guidelines or not? For example, when I walked into Archie's Walk, they take my temperature. When I walked into La Mara, they take my temperature. But other places do not. And I don't want to shame these other places because I want to make sure that we understand the guidelines as best as possible before we jump the gun. So I'm going to take a couple of days looking into this. And I am going to be so very happy to share with you further thoughts about the whole restaurant thing. We will start a list of restaurants that follow guidelines and that I trust, and hopefully you will join in with some of your own contributions. An opposite example, yesterday when I was driving home, I drove past Tacos Panchos on Basilio Vadillo, and I love those guys, and I love those tacos, and I know the owners, but there was no safe distancing going on there. And as much as I love their tacos, we're very fortunate that there are so many other taco places in the city that are not going to be as crowded and are going to be probably just as tasty. Meet Costco guy. Lord Costco was a customer, I think, that was hanging around a store without a mask, and some lady told him, put on your mask, and he got all wiggy, and there's this 17-second clip in which he just went mental on her. I haven't seen the clip because these can be very funny and not funny at times. Anyhow, this guy apparently worked for a very important insurance company, and even though he was their most valued employee or their top salesperson, he was fired. He was fired. In a statement on his Facebook page, the company said, "Thank you to everyone for their comments and messages raising awareness about a former employee at Ted Todd Insurance. Their behavior in the video is in direct conflict with our company values, and their employment has been terminated." I don't like to feel good about these stories, but when lords and ladies are out and about doing their thing, it's one of those things. We obviously haven't had a chance to look at President Bolsonaro of Brazil's health. He claims to be okay. I haven't had a chance to look at what went on in the visit that our president did to Washington, D.C. But I found this this article in El Heraldo de Mexico that shows some of the most beautiful photographs that were captured on his visit. And there is the president of Mexico at the Lincoln Memorial. And that brought tears to my eyes yesterday. And maybe that has to do with the fact that I've spent so many years living in the United States and so many years connected to the community and life and society and culture and traditions and heritage of the country north of the border. I just loved seeing that photograph. There are more photographs here. I'll share the link with you so that you can look at it. But it is also, and this one really touched my heart because I had no idea. Well, Benito Juarez is a very important person in the history of Mexico, and I had no idea that there's a statue commemorating him in Washington, D.C. And this also made me cry because I used to spend a lot of time in Washington, D.C. because an ex-partner's parents living there and so forth and so on. And had I known that there was a sculpture of his being such an important hero in my history, in the history of Mexico, I would have loved to see it. But then again, this was many years ago at a time in which it wouldn't have been something that affected me as deeply as it does today. But it was interesting to read this article because this article answers the question of how is it that a statue of Benito Juarez ended up in Washington, D.C. And apparently there was a cultural exchange between the United States and Mexico that ended up in this sculpture being in Washington, D.C. and a Lincoln sculpture being in the Polanco neighborhood in Mexico City. And apparently the sculpture of our national hero, or one of our national heroes, Benito Juarez, had to go through all kinds of horrible ordeals traveling by train all the way from Mexico City to Washington. And by the time it got there, it was missing an arm and it was cracked. And I haven't read the whole article, but I'll look into it. And if there's anything really interesting to share with you, I will be happy to do so. I also wanted to let you know of a brand new Netflix series that is coming online later on this month, and it's called Street Food Latin America. And I looked at the trailer and it looks absolutely delicious. It includes all kinds of wonderful food from Mexico, but also from other countries. And while I'm at it, please let me give a huge shout out to my friend Eric Wichner from Vallarta Eats Street Foods. He does excellent walking tours around Colonia Emiliano Zapata and other parts of El Centro. Even though they are for tourists, if you are a local and you've never ventured into street foods tours, I actually don't know if he's having them now, obviously because of the circumstances that we're going through. But at some point when it was allowed, I wouldn't think twice to recommend them. They're absolutely wonderful. And almost last headline of today, it's nice to see that the English National Ballet has an on-the-round production of Cinderella that is available on streaming starting yesterday or today, I don't remember. And it stars the wonderful Mexican primo ballerino, if that is the correct term, Isaac Hernandez. And this was filmed and presented at the Royal Albert Hall in London, and it is absolutely, it looks like it's a stunning production if you're a ballet fan. And I will share the link to it in the show notes as always. And that's it. Let me take a quick look at your comments to see if there's something important that we should address on the fly. Thank you very much for your comments on the weather. The weather stays. Again, Jonathan, I try to read it in Celsius every single day. If you want me to flick to Celsius on the big number, I'm happy to please. Absolutely. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, weather, like the weather. Rita, I live to make your day and everybody else's. Some of your comments are absolutely delicious. Yesterday, Ryan when I got confused between underpinning and underpining, Ryan Donner wrote the most charming remark. You guys don't know it, but when you participate and engage, you are so absolutely wonderful. Noi is in Bangkok. Noi has been producing all these wonderful cooking videos. Noi, I am so very excited that you are doing this. I am so very excited that you're sharing some of your culture with us. And I see that you've started subtitling some of them in Spanish, which is absolutely wonderful. Jamie comments on bars opening by getting around. They're not having a restaurant license and by ordering food from nearby restaurants. Yes, I do believe that is the part that is problematic, and I do suspect that that is what is going to be a problem that the city of Puerto Vallarta is going to address. I get delivery as I am in risk. There you go, Myrna. I would have hated to hurt your feelings by mistake and by being careless in my remarks. I do appreciate that some people have no choice but to get their groceries delivered. And again, I am so grateful for the great lesson that I received yesterday, or that I taught myself yesterday. And yes, Christopher says that the protocols say yes, but yes, isn't it confusing? And while I'm at it, Christopher, I'm so glad that you're here because I want to tell everybody about the wonderful birthday experience that I had yesterday at Christopher's Chachalaca Bar. I remember when Chachalaca Bar opened because I was commissioned to write an article about it by an American magazine. And although I haven't been a frequent customer, I keep my eyes open on what's going on. So last night, again, I chose not to have a big birthday celebration. I went and visited with my friend Paul at Hotel Mercurio because I was craving some nachos. Full disclosure, Paul and Hotel Mercurio and Mercurio Swim are my clients. It is my job to promote them on social media. I do all their videos, I do all their stuff. But it so happens that I adore the nachos at Hotel Mercurio, and I know that I'm not alone there. They make some kick-ass nachos. So last night, I wanted nachos for my birthday, so I came over to Paul and we had nachos there. But I was wearing my Chachalaca t-shirt, so I figured we should just go and say hello to Christopher, and I'm going to apply for a job at the door. Well, we walked in, and of course, our temperature was taken, and there was a disinfectant mat at the door. And I applied for a job. They turned me down, and I said, well, fuck this. We're going to stay anyway. And unfortunately, Christopher was already gone, and Paul and I had a wonderful evening together. It was raining. The food was yummy. I had my first non-frozen my first non-frozen mango margarita that tasted fresh. I don't know how that's done, but I like my frozen margaritas when they're flavored, but this mango margarita was not frozen and it was just yummy. And we had some food to go along with it, of course. But what is really wonderful about Chachalaca Bar, and we got lucky because there weren't that many people, is that they have all these television screens, and they have a keyboard that you can use to search YouTube videos that you may want to watch. So Paul and I had the best birthday because we kept sharing videos, and the bartender kept putting videos that I didn't know, and that nurtured me. And then we kept suggesting other videos, and it was just an absolutely wonderful way to spend my birthday. And I can wholeheartedly recommend Chachalaca Bar as a place where you can eat and drink and enjoy a nice conversation and watch people go by. Oh my God, the people watching is colorful. And I'm just going to say colorful because that's the most healthy word I can think of, because you see all kinds of people walking up and down as they're walking towards Los Muertos Pier. So thank you, Christopher. I know that it's been challenging for you to get all your papers in order. I really wish you much success. Let's see. Kathleen loves Chachalaca. I'm very glad that they put a birthday candle on the nachos. I asked for a candle, Eric, and it was not a birthday candle, and I didn't get it, and that's okay. I am actively searching for a candle these days. And yes, I mean a candle. But that's too personal. Never mind, you never heard that. That was my outside voice. Simon asks, it will be for 14 days, but any ideas as to when it may happen? Simon, that is a very legitimate question. I saw a lot of people concerned lately that are either planning to come soon or not, and should they cancel or not. We don't have any guesses because it's the numbers that determine that. I looked at some of the numbers this morning, and there were more deaths in Puerto Vallarta, and there were more cases in Puerto Vallarta, and more cases throughout the state. So it's the numbers that are going to dictate if and when this so-called emergency button will be pushed. Ricardo chimes in. According to regulations, if you have a restaurant bar license, if you don't actually have a kitchen but have a specific license, you can get food for your neighbors. Again, Ricardo, I'm not an expert on these things. I just hope that for those of you that have been doing things by the book, things will continue to operate as normal. And it's only the people that are bribing or that are trying to cheat the system at the expense of everybody else that are going to get fucked. And I really do hope that, because it's not fair. It's not fair. Isaac comments that they will be checking the numbers on a weekly basis. That's what I thought. Hello, Isaac. That's what I thought, that the governor will continue to present his reports on Sundays, and based on that, this will happen. Renee asks, where is Chachalaca? Chachalaca is located on Francisca Rodriguez Street, which is a street at Los Muertos Pier in Colonia Emiliano Zapata. It's right next door to Archie's Walk. And it's a very, very cute little place. Very, very cute. Next announcement is on July 15 if the button is not pushed prior. That makes sense because today is July 9th, so that'll be around a week from now. Um, we pretty much reached the end of the program. As always, I am so very, very grateful for your company, your support, your insight, your comments, your suggestions. Did I say company? Yes, I did say company. I really, really appreciate what's going on here, and we're going to continue to do the same thing. I hope that through this very crazy week, because it has been crazy, you will continue to take care of yourselves, that we will all continue to lead by example, that we will continue to think and ponder about our words before we say them or before we type them. I know that yesterday I was really involved in what was going on, and and I'm glad to remember that sometimes the best thing to do is to take a breath and think about what's going to come out of your mouth or your thoughts before you actually share them. Um, I hope that today is a wonderful day. It's Thursday. The weekend is almost around the corner. I am going to go check out some of these things that I told you about, and I'm going to go read my reglamentos protocols for all these businesses so that I can help as best as possible, keeping us all informed as best as possible. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you again soon. Take care.